My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 34 years old, and I was kneeling on the floor of my daughter's new bedroom, unpacking her small cardboard box of belongings, when my fingers touched a worn photograph hidden beneath her folded clothes, and the face staring back at me made my heart stop cold. It was my high school best friend, the girl who vanished without a trace 11 years ago. And she was holding the baby who had just become my daughter. Before I continue, I want you to know this story involves pregnancy loss, trauma, and difficult experiences around motherhood. Some names and details have been changed for safety reasons. I sat there on that pale pink carpet, my hands shaking so badly the photograph trembled between my fingers. Her eyes, her smile, that crooked way she tilted her head. Jessica Renee Harper. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. The little girl we just brought home from foster care, the 5-year-old who was now in our kitchen with my husband, eating her first dinner in our house, was Jessica's daughter. How was that even possible? If this story is hitting you in ways you didn't expect, you're not alone. Stay with me. I need to take you back to understand how I ended up on that floor. David and I got married when we were 26. We were those annoyingly optimistic newlyweds who had our whole lives planned out. 2 kids by 30, I used to tell him. A boy and a girl, maybe a dog. He'd laugh and kiss my forehead. Whatever you want, Ratch, we've got time. But time had other plans for us. We started trying right away. Month after month, those pregnancy tests came back negative. I told myself to be patient. These things take time, my mom said. Your grandmother tried for 2 years before she had me. But 2 years passed. Then 3. I started tracking everything. Temperatures, cycles, timing, I became obsessed. David tried to stay positive, but I could see the worry in his eyes. Maybe we should see someone, he finally said one night. I didn't want to admit something might be wrong. But deep down, I already knew. Our first appointment with the fertility specialist changed everything. The doctor was kind but honest. Your egg reserve is significantly lower than we'd expect for your age, she said. It doesn't mean pregnancy is impossible, but it will likely be challenging. I remember gripping David's hand so hard my knuckles went white. What do we do? I asked. We have options, she said, but I want you to understand this journey might be longer and harder than you anticipated. She wasn't wrong. We started with medications. Rounds of pills that made me moody and bloated and hopeful and terrified all at once. Nothing worked. Then came the injections. I learned to give myself shots in the stomach while David held my hand and looked away because needles made him queasy. Still nothing. IVF is our best option now, the doctor told us after our 6th failed cycle. The cost was staggering. We drained our savings. We borrowed from family. We took out a second mortgage on our tiny starter home. But I would have sold everything I owned for the chance to be a mother. The first IVF cycle failed. I cried for 3 days straight. David held me and whispered, "We'll try again, we won't give up." So we tried again. And this time it worked. I'll never forget seeing those 2 pink lines. I screamed so loud David came running from the garage thinking I'd hurt myself. We did it, I sobbed. We finally did it. For 8 weeks, I was the happiest woman alive. I talked to my belly. I bought tiny socks. I started a Pinterest board for the nursery. Then came the ultrasound. The technician got quiet. Too quiet. She excused herself. When she came back with the doctor, I knew. "I'm so sorry," the doctor said. "There's no heartbeat." The world collapsed. Everything we'd worked for, hoped for, sacrificed for, gone in a single sentence. David had to practically carry me out of that office. I couldn't walk, couldn't breathe, couldn't understand why this was happening to us. Why, I kept asking him, why us? What did we do wrong? Nothing, he said through his own tears. We did nothing wrong. But it didn't feel that way. It felt like punishment. We tried IVF twice more. The second cycle didn't even produce viable embryos. The third resulted in another pregnancy. Another 8 weeks of hope. Another loss. I was broken. David was broken. Our marriage was cracking under the weight of all that grief. I can't do this anymore, I told him one night. I can't keep destroying my body for something that's never going to happen. He pulled me close. Then we stop, he said. But Rachel, being a mother isn't about how a child comes into your life. It's about the love you give them when they're here. He planted a seed that night. A seed that would eventually lead us to a little girl named Emma. But I wasn't ready yet. I spent the next year in therapy, working through the grief of the children I'd never hold. My therapist helped me understand that my losses didn't define me. That my worth as a woman wasn't tied to my ability to get pregnant. That there were other paths to the family I'd always dreamed of. Slowly, I started to heal. And slowly, the idea of adoption began to feel less like giving up and more like a new beginning. I want to look into foster care adoption, I told David one evening. His eyes lit up. Really? There are kids out there who need homes, I said. Maybe we're supposed to find them instead of waiting for them to find us. We started the process immediately. Background checks, home studies, parenting classes. It was exhausting, but it was different from fertility treatments. This time, I wasn't fighting my body. I was opening my heart. 8 months into the process, our caseworker called. There's a little girl, she said. 5 years old. Her name is Emma. She's been in the system for 2 years, and she's ready for a forever home. My heart raced. Tell me about her. She's quiet, a little shy. She's been through a lot, but she's resilient. And Rachel, she has the most beautiful smile. We met Emma 3 weeks later. She was small for her age, with tangled brown hair and serious dark eyes. She didn't say much that first visit. But when I sat down next to her and pulled out a coloring book, she scooted closer. By the end of the hour, she'd colored 3 pictures for me. Can I keep these? I asked her. She nodded solemnly. They're for your refrigerator. I fell in love with her right then. The adoption process took another 4 months. There were visits and evaluations and mountains of paperwork. But finally, the day came when we brought Emma home for good. She had one small cardboard box of belongings. Everything she owned in the world fit inside that box. My heart shattered a little when I realized that. Let's get you settled into your new room, David said, carrying her box inside. Emma looked around our house with wide eyes. This is all for me. All of it, I said. This is your home now. She didn't cry. She didn't celebrate. She just nodded, like she was afraid to believe it. That first night, I let her fall asleep in her new bed with her stuffed bunny while I started unpacking her things. David was downstairs making hot chocolate. Emma's breathing was slow and steady. Everything felt perfect. And then I found the photograph. I didn't understand what I was seeing at first. A young woman, maybe 20 or 21, holding a newborn baby. The photo was creased and worn, like someone had held it 1,000 times. I flipped it over. On the back, in faded handwriting, "Mommy loves you forever, my sweet girl." I turned it back over. And that's when my brain finally made the connection. Jessica. It was unmistakably Jessica. The same girl who'd sat next to me in homeroom for 4 years. The same girl who'd been maid of honor at my wedding before she disappeared. The same girl whose parents had hired private investigators, whose face had been on missing posters all over our town. Jessica Harper was Emma's birth mother. But how? Jessica disappeared before she would have been pregnant with Emma. Had she been pregnant when she left? Had she been hiding something? I felt sick. I looked over at Emma, sleeping peacefully, and my mind raced. What happened to you, Jessica? Where did you go? Are you still alive? And most terrifying of all, What did this mean for Emma? I didn't tell David that night. I couldn't. I needed to understand what I was looking at before I said anything. So I waited until he was asleep, and then I went to my laptop. I searched Jessica's name. The old news articles came up immediately. Local woman missing after graduation. Harper family offers reward for information. 1 year later, no LEADS in disappearance of JESSICA Harper. I read them all. Jessica had vanished the summer after we graduated from high school. She was supposed to start college in the fall. But one night, she simply didn't come home. Her car was found at a rest stop 200 miles from our town. Her phone was never recovered. There were no signs of foul play, but there were no signs of anything. It was like she'd evaporated. Her parents were devastated. I was devastated. Jessica and I had been inseparable since freshman year. She was wild and spontaneous, where I was cautious and planned. She made me brave. And then she was just gone. But now I had proof she'd been alive at least long enough to have a baby. A baby who was now sleeping in my spare bedroom. I needed answers. And I knew exactly where to start. The next morning, I called in sick to work. David took Emma to get breakfast at her favorite pancake place, giving me the house to myself. I sat at my kitchen table and called the one person who might have answers. Jessica's mother. Hello. Her voice was older now, tired. Mrs. Harper, this is Rachel Morgan, Rachel Caldwell from high school. Silence. Then, Rachel, it's been a long time. I know, I said, and I'm so sorry to call out of the blue, but I need to talk to you. It's about Jessica. Her breath caught. What about Jessica? I didn't know how to say it. So I just said it. I think I found her daughter. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Harper was sitting in my living room. She looked older than I remembered, thinner. The years of grief had carved lines into her face. I showed her the photograph. She took one look at it and burst into tears. That's my baby, she whispered. That's my Jessica, but who is this child? I told her everything. About our adoption journey, about Emma, about finding the photo. Her name is Emma, I said. She's 5 years old. She's been in foster care for 2 years. Before that, the records are unclear. Mrs. Harper's hands were shaking. 2 years in foster care. That means Jessica was with her until she was 3. She was alive. She was alive for at least 3 more years. Maybe longer, I said. Mrs. Harper, do you have any idea where Jessica might have gone? Why she left? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that changed everything. There was a man. A few months before she disappeared, I caught her talking to him on the phone. She said he was just a friend, but I knew there was something wrong. He was older, controlling. She started pulling away from everyone, even you. I remembered. Those last few months of senior year, Jessica had been different, distant. She'd canceled plans constantly. She always seemed anxious. I tried to ask her about it, I said. She kept saying she was fine. She wasn't fine, Mrs. Harper said, and I think that man had something to do with why she left. My blood ran cold. What kind of situation had Jessica been in? And what had happened to make her give up her daughter? The next few weeks were a blur of research, phone calls, and piecing together a nightmare. I hired a private investigator. David thought I was losing my mind. Rachel, I understand you want answers, he said, but what if you find something you can't handle? I have to know, I told him. For Emma's sake, she deserves to know where she came from. The investigator was good. Too good. Within a month, he'd traced Jessica's movements after her disappearance. She'd been living in a small town 2 states away. She'd been using a different name. And she'd been with that man Mrs. Harper mentioned. His name was Derek Holloway. He was 15 years older than Jessica. He had a history of domestic violence that he'd hidden from everyone. From what I can piece together, the investigator said. Jessica was in an extremely abusive situation. She had Emma while she was with him. She tried to leave multiple times, but he always found her. My heart was pounding. Where is she now? Is she alive? The investigator's face told me the answer before he spoke. I'm sorry, Rachel. Jessica passed away almost 3 years ago. It was ruled an accident at the time, a fall down a flight of stairs, but given what I've uncovered. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I thought of Emma, just 2 years old when she lost her mother. I thought of my best friend, alone and scared and trapped with a monster. I thought of all the years I'd missed. All the years I could have helped if I'd just known. What happened to Emma after Jessica died? I asked. From what I can find, Holloway showed no interest in keeping her. He told authorities he wasn't the biological father. Emma went into the system. The rest you know. Derek Holloway had killed my best friend. And he'd walked away free. But not for long. The investigator had done more than trace Jessica's story. He'd found evidence. Medical records that showed a pattern of suspicious injuries. Testimony from neighbors who'd heard screaming. And most importantly, a witness, a woman who'd seen Holloway push Jessica that night. She'd been too scared to come forward at the time. But when she learned Jessica had a daughter, when she learned that daughter might finally have a safe home, she changed her mind. I've been carrying this guilt for 3 years, she told me over the phone. I should have said something. Maybe if I had, that little girl wouldn't have lost her mother. I couldn't respond. I was crying too hard. But I managed to say one thing. It's not too late. The witness went to the police. The investigation was reopened. 6 months later, Derek Holloway was arrested. He was charged with manslaughter. The trial was brutal. I attended every single day. Mrs. Harper sat beside me. David stayed home with Emma, protecting her from the ugliness. When the verdict came in, guilty, Mrs. Harper and I held each other and sobbed. It wasn't justice. Justice would have been Jessica still being alive. But it was something. The hardest part came next. Telling Emma. She was too young for the full truth, but she deserved to know something. I worked with a child therapist for weeks to figure out the right approach. We started small. Emma, I want to tell you about your birth mommy. She looked up at me with those dark eyes, Jessica's eyes, I realized now. Did you know her? I nodded. I did. She was my best friend when we were young. Her name was Jessica, and she loved you very, very much. Emma's lower lip trembled. She went away. I know, sweetheart, but she didn't want to. She loved you more than anything in the whole world, and I think she would be so happy to know you're here with me, that her best friend is taking care of you now. Emma climbed into my lap. Can I still be your daughter, too? I held her tight and kissed the top of her head. You will always be my daughter, forever and ever. She fell asleep in my arms that night. And for the first time since I'd found that photograph, I felt something other than grief. I felt hope. The months that followed were about healing. Emma started therapy with a wonderful counselor who specialized in childhood trauma. She had nightmares sometimes, bad ones. She struggled to trust that we wouldn't disappear too. But slowly, day by day, she began to believe in our family. Mrs. Harper became Grandma Diane. She brought Emma presents and read her stories and told her about the mother she'd lost too soon. It wasn't the family any of us had planned, but it was ours. I still think about Jessica every day. I keep her photograph on my dresser now, not the worn one from Emma's box, but a picture from our high school graduation. We're both laughing in it, our futures spread out before us like an open road. She never got the future she deserved. But her daughter does. That's what keeps me going on the hard days. And there are still hard days. Parenting a child from trauma isn't easy. There are tantrums and regressions and moments when I don't know if I'm doing anything right. But then Emma will crawl into my lap and say, I love you, Mommy, and I remember why I'm here. All those years of infertility, all those losses, all that grief, it led me to her. It led me back to my best friend in the only way that was left. I used to think motherhood meant carrying a child in your body. Now I know it means carrying a child in your heart. Emma is 8 now. She loves art and chocolate chip pancakes and the way the stars look from our backyard. She knows her birth mother loved her. She knows her story. And she knows, without any doubt, that she is mine. If you're watching this and you're in the middle of your own motherhood journey, whether it's infertility, loss, or a path you never expected, I want you to know something. Your story isn't over yet. The family you're meant to have might not look like the one you imagined. But that doesn't make it any less real or any less beautiful. Thank you for listening to my story. If anything here resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, have you ever discovered something that completely changed how you understood your own story? I'll be reading every single response.